So this morning we are going to be looking at obviously, with the restrictions about meeting indoors and meeting in churches or other sort of places of worship has been difficult over the last little while, and so we're going to be talking about sort of meeting outdoors and using community centres and how people have found it. We have three panelists with us who they can introduce themselves in a minute, but we've got David and we've got Jaquetta, and we've also got Shawkat. Sorry, Shawkat. And what we're asking is that they will just give us a little bit of background to what they've been up to, and then maybe if you can either ask some questions afterwards, or if you've got any experience yourself of meeting outdoors or meeting in a community centre, maybe you could just share that so we could get to hear about what other people have been doing as well. So that'd be really good. I think probably what I'd like to do is, David, can we start with yourselves, and you can tell us a little bit about how you've ended up doing what you're doing?
Yeah, will do. So, yeah, I'm David Sutherland. I'm Chair of Trustees of Bury Christian Fellowship, which, funny enough, is in Bury, Lancashire, or in legal terms, Greater Manchester. We're part of the Salt and Light Network and have been going for about 40 years in our present guise. We have for a long time done quite a lot of work with the community, especially the homeless cohort within Bury and around. So we did quite a lot with University of Third Age, renting the site out, and various others. When back in March, the announcements started to come out, we held a very quick trustees meeting one Sunday and decided that the last thing we would do in the building would work with the homeless. So we took the decision as a church, in terms of the conventional known Sunday mornings, to go digital, which we were for some time. At the meantime, the work of the church continued in worship in its fullest sense, in that the building became one of the community hubs within Bury, but focusing on the homeless. Working then as with takeaway hot food, plus food parcels, which we didn't really used to do, but we were doing about 50, 60 a week, especially to people who statutory agencies wanted to remain under lockdown in terms of their vulnerability, not in terms of vulnerability in terms of age and so on, but really because they were newly housed and it was felt if they were out on the streets, they could engage in various activities. So back in July, one of our elders, who also held from the worship team, saw that something had been going on in Teesside in terms of outside. So we'd taken the decision that we couldn't see us coming back inside for the indefinite future, because the building has been taken over by the work we're doing. So we took the decision to look at outside opportunities. We looked at various places, and we also have a very good relationship with the local Tesco in terms of we work with them, they support us in our community work and so on. And so, to cut a long story short, we finished up using Tesco's car park. We got permission from their landlords, from Tesco. Now, one of the issues about using somewhere like that is you can only use it outside business hours. So that really dictated the time of day when we could do it. We looked at a very much a booking in system. And originally we said, oh, people can come, but they've got to stay in their cars. Now, I don't know about you, but one of the big things about the problems with digital is the lack of personal involvement, the lack of socialization, let alone those who can't actually engage for a variety of reasons, be it their bandwidth, be it their technology, be it their lack of technology. So we looked at that, and the first one went quite well. The second one we cancelled because of weather, which was another problem we've had, but it's the only one we've actually had to cancel. Ironically, as it turned out, well, we cancelled at 3 o'clock to give everybody proper notice. At 6 o'clock, it was fine. So maybe we had a lack of faith there, but we'll excuse everybody on that one. So what we've finished up by doing, and I'm going to share my screen now.
Just going to give you permission, David. Bear with a sec. Andrew, have you done that?
Yeah, you should be able to do it now.
Yeah. And what you should be seeing is a picture of the car park.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was this Sunday night. Now, as you can see, what we've actually come up with an arrangement where we park the cars, 2 cars apart, 2 spaces apart, and then zigzag it going backwards. Now, the great thing here is you can bring people out to your cars. And what we said to people is you can come out, stand on the right-hand side of your car. Now, obviously, the rules even there have changed over the last few weeks. So we went from, how kind of outdoor rules, then rapidly we moved into the changes of rules in terms of socialization, face masks, and so on. And I've got to say, it's worked really well. We get power from Tesco's. We're quite used to doing outside stuff. All our equipment is capable of being used outside on a portable basis, the way we can do everything we want. We've had a little bit of comments about noise pollution, which is always a potential issue, but people have loved it. It means they can socialise. We've had to work out carefully how we deal with pedestrians, and even little things like how do you park cars, because some people want to sit in the back of their cars, boots, and put the roof up. So you have to be sensible. On the picture you've got in front of us, there were actually 29 cars. Now that takes a lot of space up, I'll be quite honest with you. We can't probably handle much more than 40. And for the moment, because we have to hold it at 6 o'clock at night, that Sunday night was our last Sunday night for the moment, because it's getting very cold.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much the darkness, but it's the cold. So we are now beginning to look at other sites. One of the things we've rapidly determined in looking at other things we've been doing is we're not going to look for a council-owned site, because as soon as we try to do something with the council, with some of our family work, we just got an instant no. They are very hesitant in our experience. So finding a friendly site, privately owned, I think it's a necessity.
Hello.
We do steward it. People do have to pre-book, so we've got full record. But it's working, it is working well, and people, it's not the same length as we've been normally doing. We don't do a talk particularly. We're still doing some digital stuff, and we're also looking at some sort of inside activity, but not on what people would name as a conventional church Sunday morning service. More a meditation or that type of work. But again, that's got to be very carefully organised, even within our own building. And our issue is that we don't want to do anything that will disrupt our other work.
Sure. David, that's very interesting. Can I just get you to unshare your screen now for us? That'd be great.
Yeah.
And what we'll do, thank you for that. That's I'm sure there'll be some questions along there. I'm going to move on to Jaquetta. Now, just to explain, Jaquetta is she suffers by having to live in the Lake District. The problem with that is that she lives behind a mountain, and we don't always, she may not always get a good signal. Are you there at the moment, Jaquetta?
Yes, I'm here. It's fine at the moment.
Marvellous. Jaquetta, just want to talk to us a little bit about your experience there.
Yes, I'm part of a small Buddhist group in Kendal at the southern end of the Lake District, which was founded in 1991 and celebrates its 30th anniversary next year. We met for 27 years at an Alexander Technique Centre, but that closed down. So we started meeting for our open public meeting at Castle Street Community Centre, where we were already holding a private closed meeting. And for us, there's our advantages to meeting in a community centre. The main advantage, obviously, is you're not responsible for a building. You pay to hire the room, and if there's any major problems with the building, you report them. The staff there are really helpful, really nice. There's a wide range of activities take place there. It's very clean. There are chairs, there's a whiteboard, there's a kitchen. In a small town like Kendal, there's about 30,000 of us. It's nice to be part of a community. We know people who run a lot of the other groups that go on there, and I've been to other activities there for different events. Castle Street Centre also has parking. It's near Kendal railway station and it's near Kendal bus station, which is helpful because sometimes we have people come from Lancaster, Preston, other places to our meetings. One downside of meeting a community centre is obviously they're extremely busy. They had to put an extra room on upstairs. There were so many people wanting rooms. So you have to be there on a fixed pattern, like we're there on the third Sunday afternoon. Another downside is that you can't leave books or cushions or anything there. They have an AGM every year, which is really nice. So the group can be as involved as it wants to. Now, like everybody else, obviously we've been affected meeting there by COVID-19. We couldn't meet between March and July. It didn't reopen till the end of July after our open meeting date. 4 of us who helped run the group met in August to see if it would work for us doing it under the revised COVID restrictions, and it was fine. So we opened the meeting to the public in September. There's a maximum number of 6 people can be in that room, Castle Street have decided, for COVID-19 social distancing and safety. So I had to put on our website and on Facebook pages that if people wanted to come, they have to book a place and wait for confirmation of their place. We can't do it the way we normally do, where people can just turn up. And we have to also take records of them. The centre have now put up the app that people can click a phone on if they have it, and if not, we're taking records of who's attending for the track and trace. We also left the windows and the door open. We meet in a sort of detached room, which is on the side of the building, which has its own entrance, its own door. And we left that open and left the windows open. Now in August and September, that was absolutely fine. But we're going to have to see how this is in October, whether it's viable to do it in the winter. The kitchen at the centre is shut at the moment. If people want refreshments, they have to bring their own personal bottle of water. There is some parking space outside, and there's also a wide path that goes up to the detached room where we meet. So for walking meditation, people can go outside and do walking meditation. We've changed the way we do it. We normally do it the Theravada way, walking straight across the room. But we decided that because that might mean people facing each other doing it, that we would do it the way it's done in Zen Buddhism and walk round in a circle so nobody is facing anybody else's face. We've also laminated the puja sheets so that if they can be cleaned before they're used and cleaned after they're used. One thing I think we're also a bit concerned about, I think probably like everybody else in the country, is that the rules can suddenly change. You know, we could have something on our website, we could have something on our Facebook, and then the government can very, very suddenly change the rules. Yeah. As I said, you know, we have said that you can't just turn up, you must reserve a place and let us know you're coming. But all of us in the country, obviously, or in the different parts of the UK are subject to the rules of their governments. And I think that's one thing we feel that we don't know quite what will happen. We've also had to do 3 different new risk assessments. You have to do a risk assessment to meet at Castle Street Centre. And as the rules have changed 3 times, we've had to amend and update that. Obviously, this has to be done, you know,
Yeah.
and it's important, and it helps you think about and reflect on issues that could be a problem and how you deal with them. But I think that like everybody else, you know, we're almost kind of playing it month by month, day by day. The group obviously do other things at home, you know, we're in daily contact with each other. But and normally we have a meeting every week, but the only public meeting we have is this once a month open meeting, and then our FaithAction celebration that the mayor normally comes to. And again, we had to do that at home in May, and obviously we don't know what's going to happen by next May. I'm hoping we'll be able to do it in a public space with the mayor there, but it's a long way off. Yeah.
Yes,
So
it is.
that's basically what we've
Thank
done.
you for that. Yeah, and it sounds like you've obviously had to adapt, but it seems to be working until the cold weather comes. All right, thank you for that. I'm just going to ask now Shortcut to introduce himself and his experience as well, please. You probably just need to unmute. There you go.
Good morning, Shortcut Warwick. I hope everyone is well.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for the kind invitation. Lovely to be back. Shortcut Warwick, if I'm muffling a little bit, I've had some being muffly. Shortcut Warwick, Chief Executive of Faith Associates. We've been working for the past 15, 16 years with different faith groups, primarily to do with governance and leadership development, and looking at safeguarding in particular as well. But obviously during the COVID crisis, we've been very actively helping faith institutions, one, get back on their feet, help with risk assessments, and work with the various different government initiatives and government directives to help faith institutions get back on their feet and be more effective during this crisis. The remit that's been given to me obviously is looking at how particularly mosques have used the outdoor space to kind of use that facility to help them continue their service. So I'm going to focus on 3 key areas. One is Eid Prayer. We just had Eid celebrations about a month and a half ago. The second is madrasa. Madrasa is this outer school setting where you have children learning the Quran or scripture after school or on the weekend. Currently, the estimate is that there's around about 300,000 Muslim children within the madrasa settings in the UK. And the third one is the Friday congregational prayer. How once the mosques were opened up for public prayer, how have the mosques basically utilized the outdoor space? I was going to show you pictures. If I have time, I'll show you some pictures. But let me start with Eid Prayer. Eid Prayer, basically, there's 2 Eids in the UK, 2 Eids for the Muslim world. In the UK, what you have is that almost, I would say, between 70 to 80% of the people who can pray, who can leave their homes, who are physically able to pray, men and women and children go to the mosque on Eid Day. And as you know, that with the social distancing rules and restrictions, the physical capacity of faith institutions was reduced to possibly 10%. And when it went down to 1.5, it was reduced to probably about 20%. Clearly, it wasn't possible to have that number of people in the mosque. So what we were helping with, working with local authorities, working with the local police, is to get the Eid prayers into local parks and local farms, and even there was a couple of supermarkets that allowed car parks to use their facility. If I'm allowed to show my desktop, is that possible?
Yeah, you should be. Yeah.
Let me just, this is just basically, let me
You just go, when you go share screen and then
Yeah.
select share.
Can you see the screen now?
It's coming. There we go. Yeah,
Okay.
very good.
So
Yeah.
this is a prayer in Birmingham, where basically this is if I could show you pictures of what this field looked like before. This was literally 3,000 people in a field last year. This year it had to go down to around about, I think there's about 800 people there, and you can see there's still social distancing. Luckily, it was great weather that day. And this is actually another picture I wanted to show you. This is Dublin. This is the big. Can you see? This is the main rugby stadium, and basically the local authority in Dublin allowed Muslims to pray in the national stadium there. So Eid in the Park has been previously very successful. This year, I would say nearly 70% of the local authorities didn't allow it for good reasons, because they weren't organized enough, some of the communities, but also the risk and the perception. But it did happen in certain places. Quickly, I know time is limited. The second area is the madrasa. What's happened is that, again, children in the madrasas have been 32 room, 42 room in some cases. It has had to be reduced to about 15 or less because of the bubble system. And many of the mosques have started to use their outdoor spaces during the summer period to help the children get back into the teaching and learning environment within a mosque. Clearly, some mosques are still online and they're maintaining that, but a lot of mosques, I would say about 20%, have started to go back and they're using the outdoor space. Thirdly, I'll quickly talk about the Jummah prayer, the Friday prayer. Again, if you've ever been to a mosque on a Friday, you know, you're struggling in normal times to get a space inside. It's pretty full. Now what mosques are using, and we've been helping with risk assessments, to use their car parks. And car parks are now have become fundamental to the weekly prayer in the UK, as the weather's been relatively good so far. Majority of the car parks, I would say around about 90%, people that have got car parks have used those facilities to deal with the overflow. And in certain places where mosques are close to churches, I can pleasantly say that there's been a lot of cooperation between the churches and the mosques, or churches have got community centers near mosques. They've opened them up to allow the overflow from those facilities, from the mosque, to allow people to pray. So where you've got 20% capacity at the moment with the 1.5 to 2 meter distance rule, where you've got that massive 80% loss of capacity, it's being made up by car parks. Even local authorities, where I've noticed in Bradford, in Birmingham, in parts of London, they've allowed even streets to be cordoned off for 15-20 minutes to allow the overflow for outside prayer to take place. Some of these prayers have been curtailed, obviously, to 5-10 minutes, but it's working fairly well where there's local authority participation or other faith groups that are next door, they're allowing them to use those capacities. So the outdoor space has become an extension of the mosque prayer space. Currently, when the weather changes, let's come back and I'll tell you what's going on there. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Shortcut, thank you very much.
You're
I think, yeah, it does sound like the weather may play a factor, obviously, going forward, heading into winter. But thank you, Shortcut. Thank you, Jaquita, and to David. I'm just wondering, does anyone have any other sort of stories or experiences where you've had to adapt over the summer and do stuff either outdoors or in a different community space? Give me a wave and we can let you on. So yeah, Jeff.
Thank you, Martin, and it's really delightful to be here. My experience concerns the Jewish high holidays, Rosh Hashanah in particular, and we found in Hertfordshire, where I'm based, an enormous amount of support and cooperation from the Department of the Public Health Director, as well as from local councils and borough council. What they effectively did is to allow for outdoor satellite groups to meet to hear the blowing of the ram's horn. As your previous guests have mentioned, synagogues were reduced to about a 10 to 15% seating capacity. The Rosh Hashanah festival is one of the 2 or 3 times in the year when the most amount of people attend synagogue. So again, we had that problem with 70 to 80% or more of people not being able to get out. And a local rabbi here in the Borum Wood community set up a website to ask if anyone wanted to hear the blowing of the ram's horn, of the trumpet. And he expected that he would get about 200 people to sign up. In effect, he had 1,300 requests. So we ended up with 15 people who were what you would call them the blowers of the trumpets. And they were sent to different parts of the town. Some were done in private gardens. Some were done where the street was cordoned off. As was mentioned, it only took about 5 minutes at most for the ritual to take place, but we found that the government was remarkably supportive.
Great, great. I'm just looking. So you had quite a lot of help from the Director of Public Health. Is that Jim
McManus?
Jim McManus, yes, he's a good friend of Faith Action. Yeah, know Jim quite well.
He's a remarkable fellow. He sent everyone a letter telling them that they were authorized to do what they were doing.
Brilliant. Yeah, he's great, Jim. Excellent. Anybody else like to share maybe what they've been up to over there to get around the current restrictions?
Yeah, can I share?
Yes, of course, Catherine.
So we've been meeting on Zoom weekly, like a lot of people have, but we did have some meetings outside. So we had 3 meetings which were in somebody's private garden. It's a big house, and there were, so we were able to accommodate about 40 people, and that's with the 2-meter social distancing. And we had somebody looking after it all and doing a risk assessment. He's a very much a detailist, and he did a fantastic job. So he'd got all the spaces marked out, and we weren't allowed to sing and so on. But everybody really appreciated being together. I think it really lifted people to see one another. And that went really well. We were hoping to do another one, but then when the rule of 6 came in, there was something said that you're not allowed to, which we were given the information from yourselves. So we kind of had to pull the plug on it at the last minute, and we went back to Zoom again for that morning. It was incredibly valuable though, meeting outside, and a lot of people who are vulnerable in the older age bracket or have got health needs, they still felt able to come because they were very sure of their space and so on. Now this Sunday, because we can't any longer meet outside, it seems, because as somebody else has said earlier, we felt that it would be difficult to get a favourable response in terms of meeting in the park owned by the council. But I was interested to see that there has been Eid in the council, and maybe, I don't know, you mentioned about going via the police, so maybe that's something that could be discussed later. But basically, we're trying out meeting inside this Sunday, where we used to meet, which is it's basically a community centre, really. We're going to apply the same rules as we were outside, actually. So in actual fact, we're going to be less safe. But I mean, I do understand the rules because they feel that they can't monitor people meeting outside in private gardens. But in actual fact, we did a very full risk assessment. But the fact of us being inside is actually going to add that dimension to being a little bit less safe. But it's going to be an exploration. I know that some of the vulnerable people aren't coming because they don't feel confident, and I really understand that.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in whether we can still explore the outside option. Obviously, we've got the weather in play. It's really interesting seeing about the car park possibility, and meeting up in somewhere like Tesco. That would be very interesting to explore there really a little bit more. But I was wondering about also going via the police, as was mentioned earlier, to see if we're able to meet outside in a council-owned park or something.
Martin,
Yes.
can I just offer some support to Catherine's message?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Just to give you an insight, what we had to do. So we worked with people in Birmingham, Bradford, and High Wycombe, and also Ealing. If I was to use the High Wycombe example, is that the request to have there was three. First of all, the community came together and decided that we needed multiple locations in the city because of the sheer volume of people that we felt that may wanted to use the facility, number one. So there was community unity. Then we went straight to the chief executive of Bucks County Council. And what he did with the support of some politicians was to bring a kind of a multi-agency approach to the decision making. So the parks lead, the police lead, the health and safety lead, the NHS lead, Public Health England lead were brought together to basically get their input as well in the decision making. So the key questions then from those departments were sent to the organizational groups that came to us and said, look, this is what the council are asking us for. And it was a very, very detailed risk assessment. And also the community groups had to identify which location they would like to use. Based upon the location they wanted to use, it had to be a specific risk assessment. We helped them to fill in that risk assessment. It was a very detailed risk assessment, literally for a 1 hour, kind of event. And we had to show a number of things that the community was ready to do to mitigate the risk. Luckily, 2 venues were identified, and both those venues were given the go-ahead to allow that worship to take place. And I was very pleased to see that the community came together to do the stewarding, to monitor the park, to clean up the park, have even sanitization desks and even a doctor's desk if there's a problem. And these were some of the requirements that the council were asking for. So it took 2 weeks to prepare for literally a 45, 60-minute event. But luckily, both groups had at least 25 to 50 volunteers, and each event had over, I think, 800 to 1,000 people.
Wow.
But it was a joint effort, but luckily there was the political will to make it happen.
Yeah.
If you can get the political will, I think they can make it happen. But obviously, I'm conscious of the fact that the whole environment has radically changed now with the second wave and the government restrictions.
That was very helpful. Sorry, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks.
Sounds like if you want to go ahead, sounds like there's quite a lot of legwork to do and coordinating and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah, Fidela.
Yes, ours was a bit of a disaster actually. we in our church normally have 1 day youth fun day, which normally takes place at the end of last Saturday in August. And we normally have a church hall that we use, which we rent. But because of the COVID rules, the owners of the building said the building was not ready for that. So we decided to have it in a car park, but it ended up raining. That's how that ended. And unfortunately, it's not a thing we could have done virtually because all the youth will not have the technology to do that. So that was 2020 Youth Fund Day destroyed. The other thing which we're planning to do, since we are not allowed to pray loud in the church was to have about 20 to 30 minutes outside the church, in front of the church, prayer, where we can pray loud for the healing of the land. And we're just hoping that will be okay, because we haven't been back to the church yet due to the COVID rule as well. And the building not being ready. But we're going back, not this, on the 11th to the church. That's our own story.
Thank you, Fidelia. So, anyone else got anything they'd like to add or ask any of our panelists, maybe?
Martin, just
Hello,
a comment on what Fidel has just said. You've got to remember that if you're on church land, it counts the same way as inside the building. So gathering rules apply to church land just as they do to the building itself.
Yeah.
It can be a problem for people.
Wow.
And somebody was talking about meeting in the inside. You need to remember the rules on face masks being worn at all times as well, which are part of the latest guidance.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah. Heather, you've unmuted. Have you got a...
Yes, I'm from the Bread Church. I think you probably heard a bit about this from Lorraine, who's been attending quite regularly. We're a very, very small community, but everything works in community. And we're not a landlord, we're a tenant. We're in the middle of the city centre, so there are no car parks anywhere around. So I would appreciate if anybody's got any ideas about how we might meet outside in those circumstances. I just wanted to share with you, and I'm not sure if Lorraine has already mentioned this before, but we needed to say goodbye to somebody from Indonesia who was on placement with us. And this was back in early July. So the rules have changed quite a lot of times since then. But at that time, we were allowed to meet in parks, socially distanced, and within our bubbles. So 5 of us made a decision that we needed to say goodbye to Rizma, our VV volunteer, in person. So we made a picnic, we took chairs, we sat socially distanced. 3 of us were in one bubble and 2 in other separate bubbles. And we actually had a short service out there dedicating Rizma and saying thank you and wishing her well as she went back to somewhat difficult circumstances in Indonesia. It was a success, and we're hoping to be able to do the same thing or something similar again to say goodbye to our minister who is moving on. But of course, all the rules are very different. And it's really, really difficult because, as I say, we're a very close-knit community and very different from what is happening in the mosques and everybody. But it's difficult for all of us, and we don't have the assistance of 25 volunteers to put together the risk assessments and everything like that. So if anybody has any ideas about how to simplify it, because I recognize it's very important, but it is a really, really difficult task to have to do a risk assessment for a very short event. Yeah. When the rules are changing on you every 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Heather. Anyone got any suggestions? What are you thinking? How can we help Heather? I'll throw my one in, which may or may not work. But you could plan it that your minister went and had dinner with individual families over a period of a couple of weeks, do his goodbyes, and as long as you're not more than 6 in the house, you'd probably could you get away with that, Andrew? Andrew's is my policy man. He knows all about these things. So
yeah, that would be fine. That would work.
All right.
It might work in certain parts of the country, but it won't work in Merseyside at the moment because we've got local
You've got,
Oh,
yes,
you've got
you've got
local
local
lockdown.
lockdown.
Yeah,
So we
apologies,
can't do that.
sorry.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're
Okay.
likely to go into full lockdown in the next little while as well. So that's
Yeah.
going to make things even more
It
difficult.
will make it even more difficult. Yeah.
But thank you for the suggestion.
when we had when we were in the full lockdown, we normally do a church weekender. So instead of all going to the weekend, we did it online. But one of the things we did was a virtual cream tea, where everybody set up their tables for afternoon tea. And so we did it on Zoom for everyone. So you could do something like that, where it's like a virtual goodbye
that's
and
good.
afternoon tea.
Yeah. Thanks, Paula.
Yeah, that's a wonderful suggestion. I have a but there as well, because many of our community members, the ones that really wish to say goodbye, are not on Zoom, don't have access to technology. So that's another problem.
You can't win, can you?
No. Round and round and round in circles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please God, send information, send help.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult. All right. Any other?
Getting the minister to stand on the main street, that on Bold Street in Liverpool, and everybody just happened to walk by. That's our only other option.
Have a little parade of individuals going past.
Yeah.
One thing we've looked at, given the use we put our building to, as I said earlier, it's been declared that it's a community centre for the foreseeable, is we're actually going to go and talk to other churches. It's a bit like talking to other community centres. Now, obviously, you've got to come up with arrangements, because I'm already in discussions with other people. We have statutory services using our building to talk to people and so on, because of the lack of face-to-face contact often, is cleaning, management, all the other stuff like you would any other community. But I think it's well worth going to a larger place, because there are some quite large buildings, church buildings in the middle of Liverpool and round about there.
Yeah.
I mean, used to work on the Albert Dock, so it may be, you may have to go. Can we share? Can we use in exchange?
That's a very good idea, David. Thank you.
Yeah.
And certainly, when we've been doing our outside, we don't confine it to our church members. I will tell you that. So we use Eventbrite, by the way, and it's open to anybody who chooses to book on. It's just the first 30 at the moment. Cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
It helps with faith unity as well.
Yeah. Good, Dave. That's excellent. That's really good. Good. Anyone else want to share anything? All gone quiet. Well, who knows what the restrictions are going to be next week or the week after, but at the moment,
I think Kathy wants to say something.
Oh, Kathy, sorry, Kathy. Where
I was just going to say that our church are looking at doing something different going forward, that we won't just go back to what church was. We will be doing something different. So they've sent out a church survey to everyone to see what they miss most about church and what they wouldn't miss if it was gone. And one of the reasons for that is that we've got a lot of people who help with worship or with doing talks on a Sunday morning. And because we're in a group of churches, we haven't always got our own minister there each Sunday. So someone has to take up the slack. And unfortunately, one person's been under too much pressure and is ill and has a very stressful job. And others have said, they've reached an age where they want to pull back from that. So there are less people to do all of the things that need doing. So I think, looking at different ways of doing it, but it is a bit scary to think you won't have the same sort of fellowship that you had before. And the other thing I was going to say is it's 86 days to Christmas. And I just wondered.
Thanks for that, Kathy.
I know, yeah, sorry. And the C word. But I just wondered what people were planning in order to do something special to commemorate that, because we missed Easter, didn't we? It wasn't the same at all.
Yes, maybe we should have that as a future subject. But yeah, that's a good thought. 86 days. Dearie me. So, all right. Well, has anyone else got anything else they want to add?
Could I just say something else?
Yes, Catherine.
Yeah, just to say that we did a survey as well, following on from Kathy, and that was really, really helpful. So we were asking people very open-ended questions, and we didn't want to, we just wanted people to be able to express what they felt. And obviously some people said they don't actually want to meet together until such time as a vaccine appears. So we had extremes, and other people actually saying, well, you know, we want to get back together as soon as possible. But it was really helpful to get to take the temperature, if you like, of everybody, and then to be able to begin to meet people's needs. So we've also found that some people have been coming to Zoom, and that's been a lifeline to them, in terms of they weren't able before lockdown, they felt unable to come on a Sunday, so it's actually drawn a few people in. Yeah. And then some people who aren't able to do Zoom are able to do Facebook. So we're doing a bit of live streaming in that way as well. So we're finding we can sort of pick up some people, and but still not everybody, you know, but it's interesting to get people's feedback, and then you can try and sort of cater for people's needs and wishes.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Yeah, it's good. Well, I think I'm going to we're finished now. Jenny, what's next week's subject? Because I never remember.
Next week we've got Rachel Saunders, who is from the National Business Response Network, and they've been working to connect business support to community groups and faith-based organisations throughout the COVID crisis. So excellent. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, brilliant. And I noticed there was a few things in the chat, some website addresses. Andrew, we'll send those out, or Jenny, we'll send those out, won't we?
Yeah, we will.
All right. Good. Well, thank you again. Thank you, our panelists in particular. It was very interesting to hear all the different ways that we're having to be flexible at this point in time. And thank you, everybody, for your time this morning. And hopefully we'll see you again next week. So thanks again. Thank you, David. Thanks, everybody.